The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is the
Dr. Doreen is an expert in autism.
Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is a visionary in the field of autism. Now you can ask her questions on Ask Dr. Doreen.
Good morning and welcome to Ask Dr. Doreen on the Autism Network. I'm Shannon Penrod and I am here with the fabulous, the wonderful Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh. I'm going to allow you to say something.
Good morning.
Try something different. So thrilled to be here with her. I sort of wish our audience could have been here for the last couple of minutes because she already got me crying this morning. I've already had to mop down once, so it's going to be a good one. Excited to be here with all of you, thrilled to be on our new set. And enjoying being in the same room together.
It's lovely. It's so lovely, yeah. And Trevor's done such a wonderful job with all the background. And
yes,
everything.
he's worked himself to the nubbin, as my grandmother used to say. Worked himself to the nubbin. So we're thrilled to be here with you. You guys know that what the mission is. Always, we want to provide information and inspiration, and Dr. Doreen is here to answer your questions live. Some of you have already started writing in. Some of you wrote in during the last week and overnight. Some of you emailed me. Those are all viable ways. We want to let you know that we are live right now, and so you can log on to Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and send your questions in there. But we're also live on about 12 other sites. Traven will start to show them to you, the fabulous Traven. We'll start to show them to you. Remember that the show is also available in podcasts. In fact, this is now, I think we are officially at 11 years now that we've been doing the show. Crazy, right?
Amazing.
And so we have that archive of all the complete shows is available, video and audio, on YouTube. And the audio is available right now on pretty much every platform that there is that you can get a free download from. We've worked really hard over the last 11 years to make sure that you can get the content for free. So if there's a place where you don't see us and you would really like to see us, please make sure that you let us know. I also want to do a programming note that now, as part of the Autism Network, Autism Live, and all the entities in the Autism Network, including Ask Dr. Doreen, we are now actively taking sponsors. Which is, we used to, when we were in studio, show you commercials and interstitial things, and we stopped doing that in COVID. And we, as you imagine, in order to have it be no cost to you, we need to keep lights running. So we are now looking for sponsors. If you or someone you know has a business that would like to advertise on anything on the Autism Network, obviously we have to be like-minded. We're a little fussy.
Yes.
I will say that we're a little fussy because we want to make sure that it's of benefit to the people who are viewing, but we're looking for sponsors.
That's wonderful.
If you want to know more about that because you would like to sponsor or have advertising on our website or on our shows, you can write to us at marketing@autismnetwork.com. We really appreciate that. And if any of our viewers hook us up with a sponsor, I'm going to give them a free signed book. So there's that, one of my books. So anyway, so thrilled that you guys are here. I do want to start off this morning by reminding everybody that our disclaimer that we do, Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is a true expert in the field of autism. She's been working in this field for more than 40 years. More than 40 years. I know you could never tell by looking at her. But she has a vast amount of experience working with individuals from very young babies up through senior citizens. She is renowned for being someone who is considerate of the individual and their needs and fighting for their rights and for them to be able to learn what is appropriate and necessary and of benefit to them. And using the highest quality and ethics always. So there's nobody better to ask a question, but there is no one in this format that could give you individual specific advice. So be as specific as possible. And I just said to you, you can write in on all of those platforms, or you can write to me at shannon@autism-live.com. And I have a question that I want to start with today that is rather a long one, so I'm going to paraphrase a little bit.
Sure.
But we had a mom, an amazing mom, write in with an elopement issue. So this is a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
And he is, I think, a mechanical genius, is what I want to say. And he knows what he wants, and what he wants is to be outside the door. Now, in their apartment, previously there was management that was working at the apartment, and they were made aware of the fact that this young man is a flight risk. But now management has changed a little bit. And the last couple of days in this horrible heat wave that we were having, their air conditioning went out. And at one point, they were waiting for the air conditioning man to come to the door, and there was a knock at the door, and Mom thought it was the air conditioner. Now, she's got locks. She already has a hotel lock, but this is how brilliant this kid is. He has learned that if you open the door, open and close it several times, that you can work the hotel lock to the place where you, I mean, this is 5-year-old. He's figured this out.
Yeah.
And there's other locks on the door, and he's figured those out as well, too. So he had to put a chair up to be able to get the highest lock that she did, and she has several locks. He got out. Yeah. She went to the door, and I think he was so brilliant that he closed the door behind him. She heard a knock at the door, went, saw a chair by the door, and was like, what's going on? Yeah. Opened the door, and it was the new staff that the real estate company has saying, you know, we have your child.
Yeah.
That he was down the street. And they kind of shamed her.
Yeah.
And, you know, read her the riot act about that. And she's really traumatized by the entire thing, a little bit afraid that they're going to report her to social services and what that will be like, right?
Course, yes.
So, you know, she made the decision, hard decision, but went out and bought a lock, an internal lock that is key only.
Yeah.
Now, there's some concern about that because she is set.
Safety,
Yeah.
yeah,
She says, what if we need to get out? But she says, I can't have him leaving. And obviously the measures I took before. And she said, I'm having, you know, these like waking terrors where she said, I know in my heart he can't get out now, but I still feel like he can.
Yeah.
So she had concerns about if Child Protective Services show up and how you explain this to them, because some of them don't understand.
It's true.
And what to do about the feeling, Dr. Granpeesheh, about still being concerned that he can get out, even though she feels very strongly. Now, the other thing, because I asked her for an update in the night, she said that this is how smart this kid is. He went to the door and he let her know, he said, someone's knocking. Because he wanted to see her use the key to open the door.
Wow.
And so she opened the door, but she took the key back and whatever. But she said, I know he wanted to see how that lock works.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in my heart, I think he's gonna, now he knows there's a key.
He's going to try to find the key and do it.
Or find a key. He's going to make it his business.
Yep. So I think there's like a couple of different parts to this question.
You think? Yeah.
Yeah. So let's address the I guess the safety stuff first, which I think is the most important, and then we'll talk a little bit about some things you could do to teach him to not actually go out.
Yeah.
And then I want to also talk about kind of the anxiety mom has around this.
Yeah.
So the first thing is make sure for anyone whose child is an eloper, I would really do a number of different things. First of all, mom's done a fantastic job with putting a lock. I would really use the type of locks that now exist where if the door opens, a very loud alarm goes off. I hate to say this because it is a little bit disturbing to everyone, but you kind of need that. I mean, that's part of, unfortunately, our children don't read the stimuli that are in our environment that teach us to be aware of danger. And so you have to make it a little bit more obvious. And let me tell you, my daughter who's in San Francisco, I just put one of those locks on her apartment because I'm just a little, overly concerned about being in the middle of the city. And it is loud. Like, I cannot tell you how, it's scary. You will startle, right? And I think that that's important for a number of different reasons. One is that, anytime he gets out, mom is informed.
Yeah.
Secondly, he will be startled. And I think being startled, he may avoid it. Like it might be a aversive stimulus that he will no longer be so interested in.
Yeah.
And these noise locks, so that's one thing. And you have to get one of the ones where turning it on and off is not obvious. Like
Right.
there are, and I have to tell you, nowadays there's also GPS that you can actually put on him in some form or another. He doesn't need to know that it's GPS. You can either do it in the form of a bracelet, a watch. There's even small tags that you can sew into the clothing. And I would definitely do that. There's no reason not to do this because it's dangerous, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and our kids, so that's very important. A lot of parents, I think, also talk to the local authorities and make sure that the local authorities know the child and know the family and know what's going on, so that if they should come across this type of situation, they know how to act. The neighbors as well. I mean, I'm going a little overboard with this because I've just
don't
heard
think
so
so.
many stories where if only one of these things had been done,
Yeah.
it would have made a big difference, right? So I think those are all factors that are important. In terms of teaching it, our kids are curious, and I think you don't necessarily want to discourage the curiosity, but your point here is to try to get your child to understand that if they want to go out, they have to have you with them. And so that is a thing you got to teach them separately, so that it's not always you being the one that takes them out, right? So you have to have a scenario where you can have the child actually come up to you and say, can we go out?
Yes.
And so at certain times of the day, you allow that. And if he comes to you and says, can we go out? You go out and you just explore. You don't necessarily immediately get into the car. You explore the neighborhood.
Right.
And so that your child knows that there is a way to go out, but it has to be together with you, right? So we used to, and if you have, like when you have a team of ABA therapists, this is one of those things where you can actually have the therapist hiding outside, and if the child does make it out, then they jump up, startle the child and say, no, and teach the child this is not the way to go. Where's mom? And the child has to go back and get mom. So there are procedures, and I think that mom has, kind of trial and error.
Yeah.
Mom or dad, I'm not sure who's writing in.
Mom.
Has definitely come to learn things that are going to help, and you're already doing those. So I also just want to touch briefly on kind of the anxiety and also the worry about how people are perceiving you. I actually talked a lot about this last week on the show that I did about anxiety, Shannon, and it's really interesting for me because every time I get into a subject like anxiety, then I see it in my own world all the time. Like this morning, as I told you, the first message I got was someone telling me that our house in Florida, the door was wide open at 5 a.m. So, and we're not there, obviously.
Right.
And so you basically start immediately, your mind, exactly. And so this is all about those things that are called cognitive distortions. They're false beliefs, right? That our mind has learned over time to develop these patterns of making conclusions based on certain things. And I mean, it's logical to assume, oh, there might be some mischief if my door is wide open, because usually that door is locked, right? And so you can go down that path and you will worry until someone gets there, right? Or you can stop yourself and say, what are other possibilities here? And am I actually, I went through all these distortions, and a lot of them, like things like maximizing the negative, minimizing the positive, or all or none thinking, or catastrophizing, right?
Oh, I'm good at that
Thinking
one.
thinking of a catastrophe, which so rarely occurs. And instead, just calling yourself and saying, hey, calm down for a minute.
Right.
And there are other possibilities. And hey, something could have happened, but until it does, why am I worrying about it, right? Apprehension about something that we don't know is just, all it does is exhausts you, burns you out, makes all that. So, mom worrying about all the things that could go wrong, I think a lot of times those worries will actually really go away or be reduced or controllable as long as you've done certain things.
Exactly.
And if you've done these safety measures, then I think it's really important to calm yourself because you've done all you can do.
Yeah.
And maybe sit in the other room and just keep an eye on things, and it'll start to teach you, oh, okay, so nothing's happening. It's okay. He can't really get out. It's fine.
Yeah.
And just reframing your thoughts and not letting yourself get carried away with the negative thoughts.
Absolutely.
That's so important.
The taking action thing, and that was one of the things that she and I discussed, is that I said, I'm so, even though you're having the anxiety, you didn't get paralyzed. You took action. You added another lock to the door. You took some action. But I do think it's important with elopement that all the list of things that you went through.
For sure.
There's a company called If I Need Help that are parents that have an eloper, that they created QR codes, very cost effective, very inexpensive. You can get them to iron on shirts.
Yeah, I love
so that if your child is,
Love
then
that.
they can scan the QR code and it tells them exactly. The police are really in tune with that. But the GPS that you talked about, how many parents?
So easy now to have a GPS.
And often your insurance or your state, if you, I know in New York State, in fact, Chuck Schumer passed legislation that they would pay for it. The state would pay for it if you need, and I don't know other states that have that, but I know a lot of insurance companies, if you say to them, my child is an eloper, they will pay for one of these devices. I do want to say that many of the self-advocates that we know get very antsy around this kind of topic and say, well, you're terrorizing the child if there's an alarm, or it's unkind if you're putting a bracelet on an adult that they can't take off that shows where they are. I do want to point out that everybody is cognizant of those things, but first of all, as far as the alarms go, they put these in stores.
Yeah.
Right? This is not like singling out people. My son once triggered the exit door at the Walmart that has the big sign that says not an exit, and he pushed it and the alarm went off and he jumped 38
He was terrified,
feet.
yeah.
And it wasn't because Walmart was trying to terrify him.
What happened? Did he
and
learn?
He learned you don't touch that door,
Exactly.
right? And so it's not that it really is a safety measure. We're not asking everyone to put it on their door. We're talking about a child that's eloping. And we do know what the reason why mom is having the anxiety is because we all know what the number one cause of death for individuals who are on the autism spectrum is, and that is drowning from elopement or being hit by a car because of elopement. Those are the top two. So there is a reason to protect these individuals until they understand the inherent dangers in their environment.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So I just wanted to give that little disclaimer.
Definitely. And, Shannon, like a lot of parents will, for instance, when they're worried about just typically developing teenagers, let's say, they will definitely put some sort of tracking device on their car. Yeah. Or like a thing that measures whether or not the child is intoxicated when they're getting in the car. So these are things we do to protect our children, right? Whether on the spectrum or not, we are trying to be protective of the child who is not aware of the dangers that are around.
Absolutely.
And again, another thing that I think is really wonderful is, and also, by the way, we do this with our seniors as well. Like a lot of, in fact, a lot of these devices were made for individuals who have Alzheimer's, who end up wandering. And, you want to try to find them and get them back home. And that's really the purpose of this.
Yes, yes. I want to say good morning to all the folks that are watching us. Dr. Nagpal, Brian, Laurie, so glad that you're here with us. Luisba, Paula's here with us. Thank you, Paula. Good morning to you. Top of the morning to you, because Paula comes to us from Ireland. Dark Angel, so glad that you're here. Parker's here. Amanda's here with her blue hearts. And we were reminding
Lori and
yes, Lori's
lots of
here.
other.
We're reminding everybody that if this isn't enough for you, this hour with Dr. Granpeesheh, you can tune into her on TikTok.
TikTok, Instagram, I'm like all over social media, and I'm actually getting a lot of questions, and it's a nice kind of way for me to answer individual questions. So I try to do a lot of that there
So
too.
make sure you check her out there. So Dr. Nook Paul wrote in this morning and said, what way can we provide auditory stimulation to a child who is continuously clapping, stamping feet, and hitting objects to teeth?
Yeah. So I guess my first question is, you are assuming that the child is doing these things because he or she needs auditory stimulation. I think that's where you're coming from.
That's how I'm reading it.
Yeah. And I'm not sure that they're doing these things for auditory stimulation. So I think the first thing is to identify the function of these types of behaviors, right? So the continuous clapping could very well be stamping feet. Maybe, I don't know, but let's make sure that there's no other function for these types of behaviors. And hitting objects to teeth. That could very well be some other sensory type of need. But if your main question is how do we provide auditory stimulation, so there's a lot of different things you can do. First of all, I'm a big fan of getting our kids involved with music. A lot of the kids love music so much, and it just gives them even if I don't have any sign, I guess, from the child that they might be musical, I will still put a musical instrument in the room and just see. Yeah. Like a lot of times just a keyboard of some type, and the child will start. And it is pretty spectacular when you see a child, going to a musical instrument and keeping themselves occupied, and even like developing music and songs and beats and so on. So definitely introduce them to music. There's lots of different ways to do that. There are, kinder music classes if the child is really young, or just if you have someone who can play an instrument, having them start to teach your child a little bit of the beginning of the instrument, that would tell you if that's the way to go. The other thing I love and I often use for a lot of different things are the noise-canceling headphones. And honestly, I just feel that they're a really good tool for our kids, not only teaching a child that they can have their own channel on Spotify and they can play the type of music that they like. I love to have a cozy corner for the child with, let's say, a giant bean bag and their headphones there attached to some device that you teach them how to use, and they can go there, put the headphones on, and just get out of whatever hyperstimulation the environment might be causing them. But also just for them to be able to access noise-canceling headphones when they are in overly stimulating environments, like when, let's say, they go to an event or a party or even outside. I had a child who really would be completely unable. He lived in New York City. Obviously, the sounds in New York City are ridiculous to begin with. But it was very, very hard for this child to even go outside and go for a walk with his nanny or something until we actually gave him noise-canceling headphones and tinted sunglasses. And then he would put those on and a hat on. And that gave him, I guess, enough shelter from the stimuli around him that he was willing to go for a walk. Yeah. And it was life-changing for him. He to this day, he's an adult now, still does that. Like, he loves to be, it gives him a sense of calm. And in fact, we're talking neurotypical people will often do that as well. Well, you'll see teenagers, for instance, who are probably shy or, uncomfortable in their environment, putting on headphones. Yes, it looks cool, but it also kind of isolates them from what's going on. And that gives the child the ability to feel a little bit safe. But so not just giving you auditory stimulation, but also giving you the ability to shut off auditory stimulation when they want that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I loved what you were saying too about musical instruments. I sort of want to make a poster now that says, let's make sure that all children with autism have access
Just
to a
some-
musical instrument. I was reading a post
Amazing, yeah.
yesterday that somebody put, and they said, if you want to teach children to focus, have them learn a musical instrument. If you want to teach children to cooperate, have them be part of a musical ensemble.
Yes, yes.
If you want
Oh,
to
how
teach,
lovely. I
right?
love that.
And it was all these things that if you want to teach children how to problem solve, how to wait, how to be patient, have them be part of a musical ensemble.
How amazing.
And I thought about that and was so thrilled that when my son was in junior high, he didn't have a long time, but he played the trumpet for 2 years in junior high in this band with this band teacher who was incredible, award-winning band teacher. And just 2 days before, he was talking about something. He said, "Oh, I learned in band," and it wasn't something musical related.
Right.
And I went, "Oh, that's so fascinating." So for anybody who's out there, put music
100%.
into your child's life no matter what, but a musical instrument if possible,
Yeah.
and to play with a group. Think about all the social ramifications
Absolutely.
of playing
Absolutely.
and belonging.
Absolutely.
Amazing.
Yeah, and even if it's not, I'm not a musical person. I used to play the piano when I was a child, but I don't
Really?
know how to do that anymore. So, but just something like a tambourine or a triangle or something that so the child realizes, oh, a beat, and they
Right.
get into it. A lot of times our kids really love that.
And eventually, when they learn it well enough, oh, it's my turn here.
Yes.
And it's my turn there. At my son's elementary school, they had bells.
Yes,
Where
exactly.
where
exactly.
where you just pick up the bell and you do this, but you had to wait till it was your turn to play the thing.
Exactly.
Oh, I would marvel at how the kids could do it because I have
Absolutely.
no rhythm.
Oh, me too. But I mean, just finishing up with our response to Dr. Nagpal, I wanted to say, so then you start to teach the child to clap or stamp feet to the beat, to the music. You sort of what we call SD control. You get it under the control of this is when you do it. If there is no music, we're not doing those things. We're just doing it to the beat of music.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Luispa says, what can be happening when a child stares for moments many times during the day? They've already done an EEG and it came out normal. And whenever I touch her, she is able to react. But I would like to know what that might be.
Yeah. I don't, and this is it says child, so I don't want to get you down the wrong path by any means. But, depending on how long this is going on and if the child, when you say you touch her, she reacts, if she actually comes out of the staring. Sometimes people describe catatonic episodes this way, and I don't know if this could be, it's very, very, very unlikely. But perhaps you can explain to us a little bit more how long it is and how often it happens and what is the child staring at any particular object or do they just kind of freeze? That's kind of what I need to know because my initial instinct would be to say, yeah, please do get checked for seizures and it sounds like you already have. But then if you could tell us a little bit more about what the behavior actually looks like, that would be helpful.
Okay, so we'll look forward to hearing back from you about that. Dark Angel would like to know, can you please break down how I can teach my child at home? We use play therapy in Canada, and I feel like play should be a part of the therapy, but not all. Can a child a pronunciation improve with time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, that's a great question, Dark Angel. And play is, you can absolutely engage with play, but, the way that we do engage with play is to use it as an intermittent reinforcer in between teaching. So it's sort of, and you do use some play for teaching as well, but the concept of play therapy on its own, to me, it's not enough. It's not structured enough to catch the child up with all the different things they have to learn. Like there's a lot that our kids have to learn, right? I mean, you have a ton of material that you have to teach. So I don't think that play will get us there in time. But being playful and doing a lot of intermittent play in between the teaching is very important, because otherwise the child is not really interested and or reinforced, right? So I think that including play in an ABA type structured program is really important. In fact, playing, and then let me just separate that for a minute, because play skills are its own curriculum. Like there's a whole area of teaching children about play and how to play with each other and how to take turns and how to share and all those types of things as well. But, you know, the concept of play therapy to me is a little, I feel like there's not enough time. And if you do just play therapy, to me, if a child that needs a lot of intervention, there's just not enough time. And you need to have a little bit more structure so you can get a little bit more content in.
I'm going to say this because I want to put it out into the universe.
Please.
I keep wanting to do some sort of a program or a show where we show actual really good ABA therapy.
Yeah.
Because this is the great disservice in the world that I see right now, that I feel like I constantly am trying to explain to people the color blue, and they've never seen blue before.
Yeah.
But when you see a really good therapist, like CJ Miyake comes to mind.
Yeah.
Like, because a lot of the things that we've already talked about today, I can remember, and I had the benefit of ABA, but the way it was built at the time that I had it, I was forced to be at home, and I had baby cameras so that I could watch the whole thing, and I compulsively sat and watched it, which is why I'm sitting here now. And I wish that upon everybody, and I will say that some of the things that happened in COVID is that some parents were forced to be in their home and watching it, and they would write and go, I get it now, Shannon, I get it. But I remember the first time, my son was somebody who would go out every single door, and it was a struggle, and I would chase him, and I didn't know how to play with him, and all of these different things. And I remember the first time that a good therapist stood at the door, and my son went to open the door, and they just put their hand on it, and they said, my door, my door. And then they said, let's go do the marble run, right? And then he was like, oh, okay, then it's clearly not my door, it's their door, I can't go out it, right? And I was like, it's that easy? Are you kidding me? Now, it wasn't that easy. We had to do that a million times in a million different ways, but that one thing helped.
Absolutely.
That was one step on the way. But then they go over to the marble run and they go, you know, whatever it was that we were teaching that week.
Yeah.
You know, it could be, you know, what color is the marble? And then he would say blue, and they would go, yes, blue, tickle him. And then they go, okay, you put it up. Should we do this or this first? And every single moment of that play with the marble run was something that they were teaching him.
That's
whether
very
it was
true.
Taking a turn or whatever.
That's
so it
very
was
true.
incorporated. It was focused into, he had more fun than you could shake a stick at.
So that's actually, I'm glad you said that, Shannon, because that, like, to clarify, and let's talk about that for a minute. So what they were doing with him was generalization, right? And that is when you get to the point of kind of using the concepts that you've already learned in the natural environment, and in this case, it was in a game, in a toy, in a playful manner. But the key to it is that they had already mastered colors.
Yes.
And that is kind of where I was going, because if you start with just doing NET or natural environment play therapy, it takes a really long time to teach colors that way. And if you've done colors, let's say in a more discrete trial manner earlier, then generalizing it and doing it during real life is just something that happens naturally, and it's playful and it's fun and so on. But it is really important, you know, those stages in the beginning when you're teaching colors, it's a lot, right? It's like red on its own, then red against a neutral distractor, then another color on its own, then rotate the two targets, then, you know, so, and then apply them to objects, and then have color object discrimination. So it's a lot of steps that we do in teaching something, and then it's like, oh, okay, the child really does know now these colors, so let's take them and put them in our play or in there. Like another, you know, generalization for colors is like clothing, getting dressed and picking the red socks or the blue socks or whatever it is. And then it becomes a useful topic, right?
Yes.
That you can actually do these things with. But a lot of people, like, play therapy on its own is missing that first part.
Yes.
Which is kind of the trial by trial teaching of the concept. And that takes a long time. When you don't have that part, it takes a really long time to teach a concept.
Yes, but I think where the disconnect is, what the arc looks like. Because how many millions of times have you done it?
Right.
I know what the arc looks like because I watched it in my home over 4 years, 5 years, really.
Yes.
But I didn't know in the first year when they were doing it, I didn't understand it. And I just think when we see ABA, we see just the part where they're teaching in the trials. And that looks like it's not fun and the child is not having fun. But done right, that can be fun. And with all the things that are done around it. I just want so badly.
For
and the
people to
reason
see
why,
that.
for people to see that. And the reason why is because the most amazing thing happened when Jem was getting therapy. My mother came to visit when we were 6 months in.
Yeah.
And we were watching in the other room on the monitor, and my mother was like, "This is the stupidest thing I've ever seen." She was like, "Shannon, I'm so sorry.
It does look that way.
I know you've told me support or silence, but this is the stupidest thing I've ever seen, and that you've gone all in, and you're such a zealot for it.
It scares me, yeah.
It scares me for you because I feel like it's a cult that you now belong to." And I mean, we had that whole talk, and I said, "Just watch, Mom. Just watch."
Yeah.
And she watched, and for over a period of 5 days. And at the end of 5 days, and they were doing the thing with him where they were teaching features of things, and they were like, so what is it? It's a bird and it has wings and all this stuff, and they were prompting him the whole way. And my mother was like, "This is so unbelievably stupid." And then by 4 days later, at one point, somebody put the little statue of the bird there, and they said, "Jem, what is it?" He said, "It's a bird, and a bird has wings, and a bird flies." And my mother stood up in the other room and went, "Oh my God, this is the most amazing thing. Why aren't people talking about this? This is a brilliant way of teaching people." And he's loving it. And she was a convert forevermore after that. And I always think, oh my God, if we could just show people that arc. Anyway, it's my soapbox.
Shannon, there's so much. I completely understand. And I used to actually, when I had parents that would come to me in the beginning, and I would get a sense at the very beginning at intake, that I would get a sense from them that they might not do well with ABA. Right? And I would always suggest to them, why don't you go and observe someone, one of our other clients, and make sure this is for you.
Right.
Because it is a, you have to be patient, right? It's a very step-by-step type of intervention. But the beauty of it is that you master things step by step as well. It's not like, oh, we have these goals and at the end of the year you will be there.
Right.
We have these goals and next week we'll be there, and then we'll add new goals and then next week, you know what I mean? They're smaller goals. And then all of a sudden, before you know it, you're at a point where it's like, whoa, they're all put together and it makes sense.
Yes, but being able to see it is everything. I always referred to it as the ABA. I referred to ABA as the autism miracle in my living room.
Yeah.
And I still feel that way. And I'm going to keep singing that song. Okay, so I wanted to get to more questions here. For a 20-month-old, is it home therapy better than clinic-based therapy? And I just said that I had home therapy because clinic-based wasn't available to me.
Yeah, and 20 months old is very, very young. I guess, we did some studies. I want to try and be kind of scientific in my answer, and then I'll give you my gut feeling. We did a lot of studies to determine if overall home or clinic would be more beneficial. And I had always done home. We used to do a lot of home therapy, right? And that's how we started at UCLA, so we always did that. And I thought it would be home. Yeah. But it ended up being that you were learning a lot faster in the clinics. And that's for a number of different reasons, I would think. I mean, you ask, why, and you have to go back and surmise why. The data showed us that it's almost twice as fast when you're in the clinic. Why? Okay, well, maybe because there's not as many distractions, maybe because the therapist is working harder because they're being watched at a clinic. Yeah. Whatever the reason is, there's a lot more of learning going on at a more rapid pace at the clinics. When we're talking about a child who's below the age of 2, it can be difficult, right, to have them spend hours and hours at a clinic, because typically a child below age 2 also is not toilet trained, and they will need breaks, they will need snacks, they will need naps. Those types of things are more readily done in the home. So perhaps as your child is that young, perhaps you do a little bit of both. Yeah. And then you see how things are working, and then you gradually, as the child ages, increase the center-based or clinic-based therapy as they approach age 3. But I do think that it is, personally, I feel like it's appropriate to have some home therapy when they're that young, because you're going to still be giving the child naps, and you're going to be teaching the child a lot of activities that require them to be in home.
Can I just say one thing, though, because I have seen the benefits of both, and I think that clinic-based, I've seen how much faster kids can learn, and I've seen what a pressure valve release it is for parents, because then you can work and you can have a break and you can have time off. But I think the big asterisk for me is, if you're going to do clinic-based, don't abdicate all your responsibility and go let them do it. You have to stay involved. You have to ask what they were learning.
So
you
important.
have to ask, do your parent, training or whatever they call it, so that you learn the techniques that you're doing. Because if it just happens at the center and it doesn't happen at home, you will greatly shortchange your child.
Such a good point. Such a good point. Like, that is such an important factor. You're absolutely right. And as a parent, we all need a break. We need a break.
Yeah.
But don't think of it as, unless when you drop your child off for a clinic treatment, unless you feel like you could be the therapist and you're just as caught up as all the other therapists, then great. Then you can, this is not your shift. You can go relax. Yep. But if you don't know, and if there's learning to be had, please learn, because every parent needs to be the strongest therapist on the team, honestly, because who's going to care as much as you? No one. So if you have to be the person that is driving and pushing and asking questions and bringing up issues and making sure that everyone is consistent and that they're working on the things that are important to you.
Yeah. My therapist that used to come into the home used to notice that I put signs all over my house for me.
Yeah.
And one of the signs that was on the bathroom mirror, so that I could never miss it, said, "Jem's team is only as strong as the weakest player."
Exactly.
And that will not be me.
I love that.
And that was what was on my mirror, and then I looked at it every single day. And there were days when I was the weakest player on the team. And you know what? What's good about that is that means you got a great team. But I would run to catch up with them, and I would say to them, "Teach me what you know, because I won't be the weakest person on this team."
That's amazing. That honestly makes a huge difference. I mean, I can say as a lead clinician, as having been on so many teams and observing so many teams, with parents who are involved, when there are parents who are involved, and sometimes you have actually both parents involved. So more often, though, you have one, because the other parent has to take care of everything else,
Yeah.
But when you have a parent who is involved, the team as a whole just functions better.
Yeah, I think everybody rises.
Everybody rises, everybody's focused, everybody's doing the right thing, everybody's in the right path. Yeah.
And you have off days. Like, don't think that I was.
Absolutely.
There were days when I couldn't do it, wouldn't do it, and I always say to our therapists, you made me a better person on those days because you showed me what was still left to be had.
Yeah.
So let me also say that. Parker wrote in with a personal question that really is touching my heart. He says, "My aunt and uncle were supposed to come in today, but for reasons beyond anybody's control, They weren't able to come, and he and his uncle have a very deep relationship, and he hasn't been able to see him for a year and a half due to them moving. He said, I'm handling it surprisingly well, but I'm afraid in the next few days I might have huge meltdowns when this hits fully. Help me and my family. And I just want to say, Parker, I just spent the last 11 days with my 2 little grandnieces, and they usually come every year, and I get to see them for a couple of days. This time their parents left them with me. I was with them for 11 days. And whenever they leave, I feel bereft. I feel bereft.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I don't know. My life is more enriched when they're there and they left. And so I said yesterday, my husband said, how are you doing? I said, I have the melancholies.
Yes.
And, but it's scary when you have that feeling because it doesn't know when it ends. I relate greatly, Parker, sending you love.
I do. And Parker, I also want to say, like, I understand where you're coming from, but I'm always so amazed at how analytic you are and how you are able to observe yourself and analyze yourself and just, kind of predict things. I mean, I just love the way you think. It's so powerful. I want to challenge you, Parker, to give yourself more credit than that. I want you to believe that you're going to be fine and that you are going to, there's absolutely no reason for you here to have fear about you being able to handle them not coming. Missing someone is a very, very good thing. It's a wonderful emotion, and you can miss them without falling apart. You can pick up the phone and Zoom with this uncle and have lots of contact via, Zoom or some other type of software that allows you to actually see them and talk to them, and you can do that until they're able to come. And I believe in you. I know that you can actually handle this. I don't think you're going to fall apart by any means. And I think there are a lot of other ways that you can kind of satisfy that melancholy, as Shannon said. And, write them cards. And it's one of the things I love is like when you receive mail from someone that you love and miss, and plan the next visit so that you have something to look forward to. But, don't worry about having a huge meltdown. There's no benefit in worrying about it. If the day comes that you feel very, very depressed because they're not there, then you know there are things you can do to cheer yourself up at that moment. But let's not worry about it until it happens.
Yeah. One of the things that we've been doing is playing a game together.
I love that.
A game
I love that.
A game that you play separately, but then you compare notes,
Yes,
like what level
a lot
are
of
you
people
on?
do that now.
Everybody's doing Wordle.
Yeah.
Like maybe if you would just play Wordle with your uncle every day and check in with each other through texts about how many did you get it in, it's that connection.
It's funny, Shannon, I've been lately really, really interested in, as you know, like the whole virtual reality and the metaverse. I've been like trying to learn as much as I can, and I was reading these articles on kind of what is the metaverse and how does this work, and this article was talking about early games that could be classified as the earliest versions of the metaverse. And of course, one of them was, what was the game that both of our sons were into where they would go in and build?
Oh, Minecraft?
Minecraft. And it is now even still a game where kids can, and there's so many other games now, where you actually are interacting with someone who's on the other side of the world.
Oh, yeah.
And the way that you're interacting is you're kind of doing your own thing, and then they come and do their own thing, and between the two of you, you're building a community. Yeah. And so, Parker, that is a great idea. Anything like that, any type of, and Wordle is a good one. There's so many of these group games now. One was Farm something, and like Farmville, and there's so many of these games.
Animal Crossing is a big popular
one. There you
one.
go, and you can engage in one of those as well with your uncle.
There you go. Try that. Now, Brian has written in and said that verbal stim script behavior pattern is occurring frequently now and impairing and preventing interaction. My 5-year-old ASD son has taken to constantly, without stopping, 30 to 40 minutes counting. 100s, 1000s even is okay, but he jumps into sequences of millions, billions, trillions, Google and zillion onto creating his own. Recently, he went from prep time for out the door to reach summer school, constantly counting, going through breakfast, teeth, socks, shoes, into car, trip to summer school, arrive at school without stopping as he went into the open area alone. This is impairing and will make learning in the classroom not possible and not acceptable. Any input is valuable, and that he will also reach out to us. And I feel like he said further down, ABA was great for him early at 18 months. In home and daycare, and later very valuable in his pre-K up to age 4. Everyone should know the value of ABA outside home in the pre-K social setting without mom and dad. And guess what? It was a load off of us. But this counting, I think, is very concerning to dad.
Please don't be concerned, first of all, because I actually see this as a wonderful thing.
Okay. Don't we like that?
Yeah, I have seen a lot of kids who are like this, and it's actually a skill. It's a savant skill. It's a very, very, I had a child who used to count every single thing. Oh my God. And initially it was like it would drive us crazy, right?
Right.
But we got to the point, we did a number of different things. We, first of all, taught him how to just like spend a lot of time doing things other than counting. And it was just any activity like narrating something like, I am coloring, this is the color blue, whatever it was, because while he was narrating this other activity, he couldn't count, right?
Ah.
And so we then, let me tell you, it was hard because he saw patterns that we didn't see in his environment, and it was almost impossible to stop him. For instance, if he was in this room, he would have counted all the tiles on the ceiling. Yeah. He would have counted the doorways. He would have counted the boxes on the walls. He would have everything. And, over time, we got him to the point where he would count in his mind.
Yeah.
But it was really, he was very smart. Kids who are number kids are extremely intelligent, and he learned how to, he still does it to this day. He was at my house a couple of years ago because his parents are actually friends of mine. Uh-huh. And he was at my house, and he's so good at, he masks it now because he's so super genius. This kid, by the way, was one of those kids that could recount the number pi all the way, 500 digits after.
Right.
But so he's so smart because he knows that he's not supposed to be counting all the time because it takes away from his social environment.
Right.
But he does still, but he does it so quickly, and he kind of puts it away and continues to socialize that, he came in and he was like, do you know that your pool is 200 and something inches, which is really the same as, and he had counted it. And I was like, oh my gosh, he's still doing it. But our kids learn, and that is just a brilliant thing. And I would recommend to you that you actually start looking at, and I don't know the age of the child, but 5.
He's 5.
You should probably get him, first of all, I would start by getting him tested. I would definitely do an IQ test because you're going to want to identify his intelligence quotient right now. And it's going to be pretty high, and it's going to be skewed. So you'll see that in certain types of activities that have to do with measurement and or counting or things that are ordinal and, he'll do extremely well, and in other areas he'll have a little bit of a dip, right? That will give you a cue as to the types of things. In other words, don't focus on having him not count, but focus on teaching him other things, because the counting's always going to be there. As long as he is able to do other things, then what you're going to have on your hands is just a genius who will be able to do math very early on, will be able to excel. I had a child who at the age of, I think, 9, had finished college-level math on the Khan Academy website. In fact, introduce him to those types of websites and places where he can use his mathematical skills and see if he's going to excel in that area. Sometimes our kids just need kind of a little boost to be able to go as far as they can in that area of strength. In the meantime, you know, fill him with other types of activities. And if the counting out loud is annoying you, teach him to do it in his mind. There's a whole lesson that we do about, you know, saying versus thinking, so that our kids realize that they don't have to count out loud, even if he's counting in his head. It doesn't have to be out loud. And once it's not out loud, when you start to interact and put other types of demands on him, he will stop counting in order to respond to those other demands. So it'll become a natural process of, he'll realize, I have to keep up with all this other stuff. I can still count in my head, but I can't when they're putting all this other stuff on me.
Okay. And Dad wrote in some more, and hopefully you've answered for him some of the questions that he had here. He said a good thing, a question mark. He says, why would it go on for 30 to 40 minutes? Hopefully, based on what Dr. Granpeesheh said, you got some insight into that. And he says he whispers it silently on the playground and home. And he says, interesting. He says
He sees patterns we don't see.
Yeah, he says he is super smart about math, measurement, etc. And he's already passed addition, subtracting into fractions and exponents.
There you go. And he's 5.
Yeah.
So you can't stop certain things. Like, think about it. You know, like we talk about musical geniuses like Mozart, right?
Yeah.
And they were writing symphonies when they were that young,
Yeah.
right? And that's because they could see patterns that the rest of us don't see. Our brains all work in different ways.
Yeah.
And he is seeing patterns in his environment that to you and I don't look like a pattern.
Yeah.
But when you see that many patterns, it's a pretty natural thing to start actually counting them. Like, I will tell you, like right now, Shannon, I see those diamonds on our wall, right? And which are soundproofing things. And because they are only 6 of them, I can immediately see them, and the first thing I'll do is I'll count and I'll say there's only 6 of them.
Right.
But if there was like 200 of them, to me, it wouldn't be countable anymore. Yeah. But to our kids, and this might be a good question for Temple when you see her, because she always talks about seeing in pictures, right?
Yeah.
And I think our kids are able to do these things. That child that I was saying who was 9, who had finished like the Khan Academy stuff, Dad would show me crazy things that he could do, you know, where like you would take a pile. I took one time a pile of marbles. I took it out of one of these bags, right?
Yeah.
I just took a handful and put it on the table, and it was a pile. So it was almost impossible to count because it was a whole pile.
Right.
And I said, how many are there? And he immediately said something like, 36 or something like that. And I counted them, and there was like 24. And I said, why did you say 36? And he kept looking because the rest of the pile was in the bag. And he'd also counted what was in the bag, right? And so that would be impossible because like it was just virtually impossible to count that.
Yeah.
But some of our kids can do that because they do see patterns that we don't see. And it's a skill.
When I first met Temple, one of the first things that Temple did was told me about Khan Academy. And she said, I'm going to tell you, she asked me a bunch of questions about my son. And she said, and I said, my son is just doing horribly at math and I don't know what to do. And she said, I'm going to guess that your child hates baby math. And he's beyond that. And she said, get him on Khan Academy and suffer through the baby math. Don't worry about it. And we did. We got him on Khan Academy, and I sort of let him self-direct. And what he self-directed to was doing animation, coding for animation, which is math, and it's all about coordinates and moving them. And then he went from there to doing his own animation. But what was fascinating to me, as parents, we always go, we just want to be able to open up our child's head, take a tour, and like get in there and see what it is. Well, it was a few years ago that for Mother's Day, my husband and my son just overwhelmed me, and they gave me all these gifts. They brought a breakfast in bed, and it was all these gifts and everything. And then at one point, my husband showed his phone, and he said, oh, we also got you this. And it was a photograph of a man holding all these kittens.
Okay.
Like a whole ton of them. Kittens. And he goes, we got you a bouquet of kittens too. And he just flashed the picture at us and put it away. And then later in the conversation, I said something like, oh, and you were going to give me 32 kittens. And Jem turned and he said, oh no, there were 26. And I said, are you serious? There were 26? And I said, are you saying that because you're guessing? And he goes, what are you talking about? No, there were 26 kittens.
Yeah.
And I said, get the phone out. And he had only flashed it at him for a second. We looked at it, and I said, get the phone out, get the picture up. And then I went through, and I enlarged
Counted,
it,
yeah.
and I counted, and there were 26. And I said to my fully verbal son at that point, how did you know there were 26? And he's like, how did you not know there were 26?
Yeah.
And I said, no, I want to know how. And he said, oh, my brain takes a picture of it. And he
then you can count.
said, and then I can move them to the side
And move it.
and he can do it like that. And
I love
said,
that.
you can?
Yeah.
And he said, you can't?
Exactly.
And I
love
said,
that.
no, I can't
love
do that.
That's amazing.
Isn't it? And I
It's
thought,
incredible.
wow, that's that thing that I always wanted to know. And he was able to explain it to me now.
I love
and
that.
that he can do it at the speed of lightning.
Yes. And what an amazing gift, right?
Oh,
and especially
yeah.
what a gift in this day and age where we are heading into the, artificial intelligence and data and computer science and so much more than we ever did before.
We need these kids.
So we need these kids. And, I've always said it's amazing that society is also changing in a way that a lot of our kids will have a place.
Yes.
Because they are going to be the geniuses that can manage this kind of stuff.
Yes. So, Brian, the responsibility is to build the world around him so that he has a place for that. That's going to be a different, but I think maybe the less fear that it's weird and that it's going to hold him back, but you got to find the path to let him flourish.
Absolutely. And then when you do, it becomes, when we're doing these activities, you can count. When we're doing these activities, you have to talk. When we're doing these, and it just starts to kind of divide, but he's getting now his outlet.
Yeah.
He's able to, and he will have his social world there as well, I promise you.
Yeah. And of course, the movie that comes to mind with our fabulous Joe Mantegna, who is an autism dad searching for Bobby Fischer, is about when you have a child that's a genius and can see things that you can't see.
That's right.
And it's a big responsibility. Anyway, we're out of time, and I didn't get to all the questions. I know. And we could stay here another hour, but I love you all so much. I'm sending a particular hug to our dear friend Christina, who had written in and said how much she's missing her ABA and how people don't know what they have until they lose it. And sending you hugs. I hope you get a break really soon. And to everyone else that we didn't get your question, thank you so much for being here. And also for noting that I believe it was yesterday that was actually the 32nd anniversary of ADA. But somebody is saying it's today. I'm going to check that, but I thought it was yesterday. But celebrating the Americans with Disabilities Act. And,
what an amazing
and
thing.
for anybody that lived in a time before that, we are blessed to have that.
Absolutely.
So we're going to be back tomorrow. We're doing a whole show about back to school tomorrow, which I'm very excited about. So we hope that for people are going back at different times, but some of you are going back in days, and some of you are going back in a month. But there are things that we need to be thinking about right now to get us ready, and we're going to cover it top to bottom tomorrow.
Great.
All right.
Thank you, everyone.
But we'll be back with you next week. And until then, everybody give yourselves a hug from me and one for your kiddo too. Bye-bye for now.
Bye, everyone.
If you found anything helpful in this video, please give us a like. In fact, make sure that you smash that subscribe button on YouTube and give us a like on Facebook. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Instagram for important updates. And please download our free podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much. See you next time.